wanted to be in business. I knew that, I had that entrepreneurial in me. My dad had a business, had couple businesses. I connected with you, and
Right.
that was you were, I think, one of my big entrances into this whole world that we're in. If we buy this house, how are we going to earn revenue from it? They hear these conversations, and it's just going to continue to evolve. Now that I'm so conscious of these patterns of thought, I am so determined to create a different path for the generations moving forward in my family. It's imperative.
Hey guys, welcome to Life by Design podcast through real estate investing. I am so excited to share with you Lawrence Ziminsky. We met during a Jake and Gino call, but she has so much to offer beyond real estate on what she's been doing with her children, how she's teaching them, the book she's reading, her successful business, and what she looks forward to in the future. You do not want to miss this. For those of you who are business owners who've been raised with a scarcity mindset, who wants to have a growth mindset, here we go. Lauren, welcome to the podcast, Life by Design through real estate, but you do so much more than just real estate. Lauren, tell me more about who you were in college. Let's go back. Go back a little further, right?
I'm
Tell
so
me a little bit
recent.
more.
I don't know if I can. No. No, first, thank you for having me, Alex. Back in college, I went to the University of California, Los Angeles. I went to UCLA,
The
and
Bruins.
I was a Bruin. Am a Bruin. I actually double majored in economics and dance. I grew
Wow.
up a really serious dancer, and I was not willing to give that up. And so I did both, and it was great. I
Right.
double majored, and I stayed really focused on my curriculum so that I could still graduate in 4 years and didn't have to become a super senior or something. But as far as who I was there, aside from my academic work, I was very involved in leadership. We'll say I
Right.
put together some of the performances, and I kind of was very entrepreneurial from there. In terms of, I noticed pockets, things that were missing in either in the curriculum or the extracurricular stuff that people were doing, and I was like, well, there's not enough performance opportunities for the dancers. Let's create a show. Let's go create find the money and figure out what theater we can do it in. How can we rent a theater? How can we put
So
together?
you actually got a bunch of dancers together and says, let's do a show.
Yes, exactly. So
Wow.
and that show, I was so proud to say that show continues to this day.
Is that right? What's
Yeah,
it called?
called Whack Smash. Whack World Arts and Cultures is the name of the major, and it's dance focused. But I'm so proud to see
So
that.
you're like the founder.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, it's always so neat to see that every year. When I left after my senior year, I passed it on to a couple of students to carry it on. But it's
Right.
quite an undertaking when you have a big theater and putting together a show with oh, God, maybe 70 dancers. It's
Are
a
you still involved?
I'm not involved
Okay.
anymore, but I just love to see that it's continued.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And did you think that one day when you were in college, did you think one day you're going to be a professional dancer? Was that one of the goals at the
No.
time?
Was never
No.
no, it was never a goal of mine. I knew that I wanted to be in business. I knew that I had that entrepreneurial in me. My dad had a business, had couple businesses, so
Okay.
I knew that was the path that I was going to take. So, and I can't say to be a professional dancer, you've got to really love it because there's some
Right.
sacrifices you have to make. So, no, I did do some professional work after college. I actually well, I moved to New York and worked in advertising after college, but as a side thing, I actually went to Afghanistan and performed for the troops a couple of times
Wow.
with a professional group. So I still continued to do it throughout my 20s as a hobby, but
Yeah.
I never planned to pursue it professionally beyond that.
Now you mentioned that your dad had a couple businesses.
Mhm.
What was it growing up that you saw your father in those businesses that made you wanted to become a business owner?
Yeah, it was two things. It was the first is that my dad never missed anything. He was always there. I had, at school, performances, whatever it was, he was always
Right.
there. And I noticed a lot of other dads weren't. and a lot of the other dads had work obligations. And I knew my dad was running a business, but despite having those obligations, he was always there. And I always knew that flexibility was going to be
Mm,
important to me. And then the other piece of it that was interesting to me is I saw that he was also making more money than most people. So I'm like, wait, he's very flexible and he's making more money. Okay, I want that.
right.
And so that really was, watching that as my model was a pretty obvious choice for me.
Did you have siblings growing up?
I do. I have a younger brother. Yes.
Younger brother.
Hmm.
Did he catch the same thing, like the entrepreneurial business mindset that you
He
did?
didn't. No, no, he didn't. He's on a different path. He's doing great. He's doing but a different path.
Okay. So now after you went to college, you said you went to New York
Yeah, I moved
for
to New York
advertising.
after college to work in advertising. I worked
Yeah.
for Omnicom Group, which is a massive global advertising agency. And about 9 months in, thought, okay, my entrepreneurial spirit is being absolutely crushed here. uh, the levels of bureaucracy. I had a phenomenal boss. I had phenomenal coworkers. It wasn't that. It was the fact that I could feel my spirit was just, crushed. I couldn't do things. I had no
Mm,
flexibility. I was working at a company. My office had 700 people. So there was no flexibility and creativity that I could really implement at the level I was at. I was just out of college. I had no experience. So,
right.
and which was, fine, but it was when I tried to kind of step out a little bit and try something new, I didn't feel like it was welcomed. It was more stay in your lane, get this done, and that's the job. But when you have 700 people in an office, you need it to be that way.
Right. Right. So what made you decide this is not for me? Just because, like, hey, I need to be somewhere that's more to be able to spread my wings a little bit.
This is really trivial, but I'll say it because it really, really mattered to me. But
Right.
I flew to Nashville to put together an event for my company. And it was at a car dealership, and it went great. And it was really nice. And afterward, the owner of the car dealership gave me a large American Express gift card. It was very nice, but he sent it to our office, and my the superiors made me split the gift card with the other people in the office. And meanwhile, I had been in Nashville for all of these days, up at 5 a.m., there till midnight, putting together this event that went really well. And I just said, really? I have to split this? And it was, like I said, it sounds trivial, but it really, that entrepreneurial side of me, again, kind of kicked in. And I'm like,
Yeah, you work for it.
I worked for it, but I can't, I can't, I can benefit from it to its fullest. So that's just a micro example, but it's those little things that you look back and you realize they really add up in life and help you on your path.
So it is important. Tell me this. How much was that gift card and how much did you have to split with others?
Okay, it's so long ago now, but I'm going to say it was 1,000.
Uh-huh.
But I had to split it with 4 people, so like we each
Oh,
got 250.
wow.
So it
So
was
even though you were the one that went out
yes,
and did it and you
yes,
put in the work, put in the grind, 5 a.m. in the morning,
yep, yep,
you
yeah.
still have to split it.
Yeah, again, it's trivial. It's a small amount, but if you're entrepreneurial at all, or if you're not used to, and you want to be able to really have merit-based compensation,
Right.
it really struck me. I'm like, okay, this sort of environment isn't necessarily going to be where I belong for the next, 20 years. So
Right.
it was really my push.
And did you find something else first before leaving, or did you just say, you know what, I'm done with
Oh
this?
no, always. I'm too much of a planner to just leave. No, no, I did. I went. I went, and I actually. I mean, fast forwarding a bit, I ended up starting my e-commerce business. Well, e-commerce brand with a partner. After that, it was a few years after that. I ended up working for my dad, and then I went and I started my e-commerce brand, and that's really what I had been running up until, and I still run it. I still own it. I have a VA that's fantastic, um, but that really was, that my e-commerce brand was really uh, my first business that I really ran and created from scratch.
What kind of e-commerce brand is that? Tell me more.
It's a diabetes brand. It's
Uh-huh.
diabetes products. It's called Diabetic, and I like I said, I ran it full time up until really last year, and I still own it and I still operate it. I just don't
Right.
operate it full time anymore. I have replaced myself in many parts of the business, but I'm very proud of that brand. It's I built it with my partner. My partner has type 1 diabetes, and we really wanted to create a place that wasn't so medicinal feeling and wasn't so it was more colorful and made people feel better, and so our brand, we get feedback every day from people that say our brand makes them feel better about having diabetes because it's such a fun shopping experience. So
There you go. That's awesome. I was going to ask you how'd you came up with it, but it makes sense that your partner had type 1 diabetes.
yeah, when she got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes as an adult, we went out to. She's one of my closest friends, and so we went out to kind of find her some product and really realized there's a big white space in the market for some of the things that she was looking for, and that's when we decided to start the brand and to create it, and we did, and like I said, we still run it today and very proud of it.
That's awesome. How long ago did you started that business?
It started full time 2015.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay. That's great. Now you've got a couple kids, right?
I do. Yep.
How old are your kids?
4 and 6. Celia and
4 and
Talia, two
6.
daughters.
Okay. Now, how did you and your husband meet and how long ago?
We met, gosh, 11 years ago now. We met in 2012.
Okay.
Yeah, we met. We were neighbors. It was the best dating experience ever. We lived in the same building in Los Angeles.
Uh-huh.
I lived on the 15th floor. He lived on the 8th floor, and we met at a building party.
Oh, wow.
It was great. I mean, like, it's fantastic when you're dating to live in the same building. It really is, especially as long as you like each other. I'm sure if you don't, then it's a problem.
There you go.
For us, it was great.
And both of you guys are originally from LA?
I'm from Orange County.
You're from Orange
So
County?
I'm from, yeah, south of LA. He's originally from Los Angeles, and his family's still here, and so it's actually a big thing that keeps us in Los Angeles is his family.
Yeah. So now you're running the e-commerce business kind of part-time, delegating a lot of it out, right?
Mhm.
And you are into real estate. And that's how we met. How
Yeah.
did you get started? Tell me back the beginning journeys of real estate. What even made you want to look into real estate to begin with?
Yeah, our journey it started really a couple of years ago. I say our because it really was my husband and I. And for us, it was I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, the Purple Bible, right?
Yeah.
Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad. And at the same time, my husband's a doctor. He's an emergency room doctor. At the same time, he read the book Why Doctors Don't Get Rich by Tom
Hmm.
Burns. Have you heard of it?
Yes, I have.
It's the same message. It's Rich Dad Poor Dad for doctors. It's the same message, but we read it at the same time, and it was really fortuitous because we didn't plan it that way. But we had the same awakening at the same time. What are we doing? Both of us were very, very active in our businesses. Obviously, as a doctor, he's seeing patients every day. And for me, I was extremely active in my e-commerce business. And we're trading our time for money constantly. And then we continue to trade our time for money and put it in the stock market. Trade our time for money and put it in the stock market. And that was just the model we were taught. So it was the model we just continued. And we continued to contribute to a 401k, have our stock brokerage accounts, but no cash flow, no passive income, no cash flow. We would just continuously, as if on autopilot, trade our time for money and put it into the stock market, and and really heavy into retirement accounts.
Hmm.
And my big awakening was soon after this. My mother passed away, and she passed away 6 months into the start of her retirement. So
Hmm.
she got sick and passed away. And 6 months at the start of her retirement. And so
Right.
that was a huge awakening for me because my mother talked about her retirement and preparing for her retirement for years. Years, which she would say,
Wow.
when I retire, your dad and I are going to do this, or when your dad retires, we're going to do this, and it was almost like she had so many plans for her retirement, and they had prepared for it financially, and I was preparing for it. I was on the same trajectory. I was preparing for it the same way with my husband. Okay, we're going to keep putting money into retirement accounts until we're 65 or 70, and then we'll then we can enjoy ourselves. Then we can start drawing from the investments we've worked for all these years. And that was the model I was shown, and that was the model we had. So when my mom died 6 months after the start of her retirement, I knew there was a better way. I knew that there was a way for me to invest in a way that wouldn't require me to work until I'm 65, 70, and would allow me to. At the time, I didn't know it was real estate necessarily, but I knew there was something missing. I knew there was something missing from our plan. And so we had both my husband and I read, again, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. He read Why Doctors Don't Get Rich. My mother passes away 6 months into her retirement. And I have this huge, okay, that's it. Pause, everything. There's something we're missing. And that really was the start for me of my real estate investing journey. And for me, I own my e-commerce business that had way more flexibility in terms of my time than my husband does. And so
Right.
it was very natural as reading about this and reading how we can invest in properties and buy properties, how I could become a real estate professional, and all the tax advantages around that.
Yes.
I was like, what are we doing?
I remember a time when I found out about it. I was like, wait, what? Is this real?
It's, and then you read about Trump earning $70 million and then putting the 70 million earned income into property and taking a $60 million loss. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, this is legal. So what do I need to do? Because it's not just for him, So,
Right.
so yes, it was all of those things coming up. And so we made the decision together. I am going to focus on real estate. He'll continue on his path. I'm going to replace myself in a lot of my e-commerce business so that doesn't require me every day, all day. And I'm going to focus on buying income properties and managing them. So I did. I was like, that's what I'm going to do. And I flew my first stop was Nashville. And I just flew out there and I put an offer.
What made you choose Nashville of all places?
Because I love Nashville. I have a good friend there. And it's a growing market. Middle Tennessee is fantastic. So I'm like, I'm just going to do this all by myself. And so I flew to Nashville and I put an offer on places and I went to the banks and I went to the property managers. I was like putting together my teams. I obviously read quite a bit leading up to this point. I skipped that
Of course.
part.
Of course.
I educated myself, read a lot of books, listened to a lot of podcasts, and I just figured I'm doing this all by myself. And I flew out. I put an offer on a couple places. I flew to Charlotte. I put an offer on that places. I'm going to do all of this myself. And for a lot of different reasons, all three of those contracts fell out. For very interesting reasons, having nothing to do really with me, but I do believe that there was some universal presence being like, Lauren,
Right.
this is not the way that you should manage your real estate career. I did buy some single families. I did, and I did get some great property managers in place, in that way. But the multifamily piece of it eluded me trying to do it by myself.
Mm.
And it was really, I think, at that point that I had, known about you. I connected with you, and
Right.
that was you were, I think, one of my big entrances into this whole world that we're in.
Well, it definitely the universe brought us together,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
And I remember the call that we got on. It was the day after we did our live Zoom call. But when did you start looking into multifamily before we met? And also, how did you even hear about that Jake and Gino call?
I have been following, the whole Jake and Gino. I've been following Marco. I've been following the whole ecosystem for a while. So that, and I don't even know how I got an email, and I'm not sure how I ended up on that list, but
Okay.
I got
Okay.
an email, but I get those emails all the time. So I think the fact that I actually logged into that particular one and connected with you was very fortuitous. Again, I think the universe kind of brought us together exactly at the right time. But for me, so I had been educating myself and following players in the space for a long time. But again, even though I had been doing that and educated and knew that there was this ecosystem of people, of you all, who invest together and who have these great goals that you set together and push each other, I still was like, I'm going to do it by myself. That's nice, but I'm going to do it by myself. And after about 9 months of trying to do it by myself, I'm like, all right, this isn't working. I need to connect with some people, and that's when you came into my life.
And it happens a lot. The thought of, I'm going to do it by myself, to all of us who are business owners.
Yeah.
See,
Yeah.
and I had the same thought process when I first joined Jake and Gino. Upon joining, before I joined, I told my wife, I said, Helen, we're going to go and learn about multifamily and we're going to take down properties on our own,
Yeah.
right? That's what my thought was. And then you go into the seminar and you start learning, and it's like, wow, it's a team sport,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? So after we met on the phone, right, and then we met in person in Orlando, what's been the evolution of change since then?
Oh, I am a completely different person. I marvel at it. A completely different person. Not only from an investment standpoint, well, I'm now an LP in one of your deals. I'm an
Right?
LP in two other deals, which just never would have come about prior to that. I'm about to close on a JV deal this week, or maybe it will turn next week, but in the next week, I'll be closing on a JV deal with some other members of MIH. And it's, it's a totally different mindset, and not only on the real estate mindset and the team sport of it and all of that, but it's also on the personal development mindset. I can't describe how you all, the whole ecosystem that I've been introduced to has really impacted me from a personal development standpoint. I speak on social media now. I'm very comfortable sharing my story. All these
And you're
things.
really good at doing that.
Oh no, that's so nice. Thank you. I really enjoy it, and I've gotten people reaching out to me who I haven't spoken to in a while, saying, "Oh, thanks for that 529 video. You're right. I hadn't thought about that," and it feels really good. And I think I've come into my own in the sense of I really enjoy helping people in that sense, and I think that I've learned so much in this process. Uh, and I want to share it with people because I think a lot of us have been indoctrinated to just invest in paper assets, just work really hard, give it to Wall Street, and in 40 years, you can enjoy your investment. Like, what?
Right. And if you take it out early, we're going to ding you for it.
Can't take it out early. I'm like, wow, well, I mean, that's a good deal. I wish someone would give me money for 40 years and they can't touch it. I mean, it's a great deal
Right.
for them. I mean, but for us, and we've all been kind of, when I'm generalizing, but most of us have been indoctrinated. I'm going to use that word because that's what you
Right.
do. You work really hard and you give it to put it in a retirement account. Wall Street will take great care of your money. And then, in 40 years, you can touch it. And I feel so strongly that I want to share it with everybody.
Yeah.
And
Isn't that a great system they put together?
amazing. That's what I said. I would love that for myself. Like, how can I create a system where someone gives me their money and they can't touch it for a long time? Like, yeah. I feel like I am on this mission to talk to everybody. And to just share it because I just feel like a completely transformed person. And I think there's nothing like investing. I'm just saying, even as an LP and getting
Yes.
your first distribution check, it's like, oh my God, I just need 100 more of these and we're good.
Right.
um,
Right.
or even, my single families, they cash flow really well. And I have, like, for example, I have one single family property that's in a great area. I'm not going to sell it. It's got a 3% interest rate. I'm just keeping it. And I really think of that as my daughter's 529. Like
Mm.
that's her 529, that single family house. I'm not going to touch it. I'm not going to try to roll it into something bigger. That particular house is her 529. I'm going to get cash flow from it for the next 15 years. And then when she's ready to go to college, I'm going to refinance out the equity and pay for college and keep the property. And that's my plan. And I think that too many people don't realize that those are options. That there are options outside of, in terms of investing, outside of Wall Street. So
Absolutely. And that's a great plan.
I feel
And
very.
you do such a good job in sharing it and connecting with people. Like when I watch your videos, you're locked in. Like your eye contact, you're locked in. You're really speaking to the person.
I love it. My friend the other day is like, "Can I just bring a whiteboard to your house and just 2 hours? I just need you to write down all of this." I was like, okay, sure. But I feel so strongly that everyone needs to know. And I think there's so many limiting beliefs out there that people think, well, I can't invest in real estate because I don't have the money. And there's just so many options out there to invest in real estate, even without capital or small amounts of capital. But people don't realize it. especially
Right.
in California where entry-level house is $1 million. So people just think, well, how could I buy a rental? I can't even buy my primary residence. But
Right.
the reality is, I put an offer on a house for $70,000 in Middle Tennessee last week. There are other options.
There you go. How are you moving forward, showing or planning to show your kids what to do? What's the plan there? I'm sure you thought about it.
Oh my God. Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to the kid thing, have you ever read the book Buffetology?
No,
Okay,
no, I gotta check that out.
it's short and it was written by his former daughter-in-law. So when you're in the family, you can't talk about things, but apparently once you get divorced, you can. And she says this in the entry and the beginning of the book. But the stories that she told of how he helped his grandchildren and children start thinking as investors as
Oh,
opposed to
wow.
thinking as consumers. When it came to holidays, it was I'm going to buy you shares in this stock. Now this was, that's his world is obviously stocks, but I love the notion of just teaching your children how to invest young. And even now, as we play games, and we have a game where I say, okay, I have a 40-unit apartment building. Every unit needs new paint, and the kids get up and they go and pretend to paint the walls, And I'm like, okay, I'm really wanting them to think in terms of getting comfortable with real estate and numbers and return on equity, all of these things. I wasn't taught any of it really. It was, and I'm not blaming. I have phenomenal parents. That is absolutely no knock on them. I have the best parents, but it just wasn't a conversation we had in our house. So
Right.
getting them to understand through books, through conversation, even the conversations at the dinner table that Luigi and I have, and they hear, it just
Yes.
gets them thinking in those ways. They hear us talking about our real estate, and they hear us talking about investment. They hear us talking about if we buy this house, how are we going to earn revenue from it? They hear these conversations, and it's just going to continue to evolve.
And then that's very important. I'm glad that you guys are talking about it in front of them
Yeah.
because kids, they're like a sponge. Sometimes you tell them to do something, they're like, a little resistant. But when you're always surrounded by it, they're going to hear it and they're going to pick up on things.
Yeah. Well, I love that you brought your daughter to a Jake and Gino event. Like that was
Yeah,
so neat to see. I'm definitely doing those things. I mean, I absolutely plan to take them to our properties and yeah, and take them to any sort of real estate events. I love that.
absolutely. That was her third event.
Oh,
And we met a couple that was from Atlanta. And they're like, oh my gosh, we brought a 14-year-old. We thought she was young. We got a 10-year-old over
she's really smart. She gets it.
here.
I
No,
love
but then just having her being in that ecosystem
it.
where she's standing there while we're talking. When we're at dinner, she hears us talking and she picks up on all these things. So by the time she really can comprehend it well, it's just second nature. She would already know people in this space.
Right.
It's not like, oh, mingling, that's natural to me. Talking to people, it's natural. It's not something that it's unnatural to her.
Yeah, getting them comfortable in those environments. I could not agree more. It's just such an advantage if they're thinking in these ways and they're comfortable in new environments, wherever that is. It's such an advantage as they get older. I really want them to always feel like they can hang in any room. Like
That's it.
I don't know any other way to say it than that. Like I don't want you to ever feel like there's
Like you belong.
yeah,
Like you
yeah,
could, yeah, yeah.
exactly.
They're like, hey, I belong here.
Right. Always. Like I have something to contribute. I'm awesome. Whatever it is. Yeah, I think that there's that quote that God doesn't let you enter any room that you don't belong in.
That's right.
I love that quote, and I want them to always feel that. And I think that what we're doing now, what you're doing now, mine are 4 and 6, so I'm not quite ready to take them to these events. But I absolutely by the time they hit 10, they're going to be visiting properties with me and going to these things.
Absolutely. So how big are you looking to get and what does the next few years look like? What's your trajectory in 5, 10, 20 years?
I mean, it's funny. Okay, it's funny you say that. I'm going to tell you a little story as to where I come from in this. I was talking to one of my mentors, and he was telling me that he only buys for himself on his own, and that's his thing. He owns 7 sizable apartment buildings
Hmm.
that he's been buying over the past 15 years, that he did the Burr method and he pulled his capital out. They're doing great. They're great. He said, so you could do it like me, Lauren. Or I mentored someone 10 years ago who said, I'm going to scale, I'm going to raise capital, and I'm going to really build my real estate business. And he now owns 8,000 doors and he's buying properties on Rodeo Drive and things like that. But so there's the right there's 2 ways to do it, right? You do it on your
Yeah.
own, or you raise capital and you really scale, and you and certainly for me, it's the latter. I think that I want to build my own portfolio, and we're very focused on building passive income, because we're trying to become less reliant on Luigi, especially being in the emergency room. But we want to continue to compound our portfolio and our capital, and I want to continue to be a part of GP teams raising capital. I'm in Los Angeles, and there's a lot of people around me that want to invest in this way and just don't know how.
Right.
And they don't have the bandwidth necessarily. They're an attorney who works 80 hours a week, and they don't have the bandwidth to fly to Kansas City and check out a building. But they are interested in that sort of investment. And so I just feel like I'm around a lot of that. And I want to educate these people as well as bring them in and, have them invest with us.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You and I are on the same page on that one.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I knew we were. Yeah. That's
That growth mindset is so huge,
yeah.
right? And especially with the things that you and I know, why just keep it to ourselves? Why not share it
Yeah.
with others?
I,
You know?
I'm so
So,
passionate about it. I believe so much in it. I think that when you really believe in something,
right.
it comes out of me so organically. Everyone I meet, I'm like, "Do you want to talk about real estate?" I just
Yeah.
like, no. I feel like every party I go to, I end up talking about real estate. I feel so strongly about the benefits that it can create, and the benefits that it can. I don't want my mom's story of dying 6 months after her retirement and building
Right.
up her nest egg, building up retirement accounts, building up these brokerage accounts, never
Mm,
taking any passive income from it. There was no, obviously, it's brokerage or it's paper assets. You're not getting passive income from it unless it's,
right.
of course. But just watching that model, and I see so many of my friends on the same path. I feel so strongly that I want to share these things with them, and if they choose to proceed, they can. But I want to share it.
Has any of them been resilient to it
You mean receptive?
or non-receptive?
Oh no! Oh yeah! Oh yeah! I've had someone tell me, "Well, that's going to be like a Ponzi scheme or something," or that's. There's no way you could double your capital in 5 years. I mean, that's obviously just wrong. And, or the refi return of capital. Like, how is that not
Yeah.
taxed? I'm like, it's a loan.
Yeah.
I don't understand
Yeah.
that. So absolutely, I've had resistance. I would say more so though. I've had people very interested. There's always going to be those people who are resistant to
Right.
anything outside of what they're used to. But I think it's exactly what you just mentioned: the growth mindset. I think if you approach every conversation in life like there's probably something to learn and grow from this. Anytime I learn about something that I want to hear. What's the Ted Lasso quote? Be curious, not judgmental. I love that
That is
quote.
true.
And I feel that way very strongly whenever I learn something new. And I think most people in my life similarly feel that way.
Hmm. So I'm going to ask you a few questions here as we get towards the end of this podcast.
Okay.
Number one, what keeps you up at night?
Um, let's see. I have been very focused on not allowing a train of thought to keep me up at night. Actually, it's kind of interesting. I've been doing a lot of really spiritual work and things like that, and really
Yeah.
trying and meditating in the morning and meditating at night and trying to clear my mind. And so I got to say, I try not to worry. I really try, because they say 90% of the things we worry about don't come to fruition.
Right.
So it's actually been a major focus of mine to stop worrying, because I do believe if I continue to focus on what I want to create, as
Yes.
opposed to what's looking in the rearview mirror, what could happen or what shoe could drop, I think that uh, things continue to get better for me when I focus on that. So I got to say that for me, I I want to put my foot down and say, I do not stay up at night worrying.
Awesome, awesome,
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. Hey, because we always got to be progress oriented,
Yes.
right? If we focus on the progress and the growth, then it's like, well, we don't really have to think about what sets us back.
Right. And I just finished The Power of Ted. Have you read it?
The power of TED.
Yeah. The
No, I
empowerment
have not.
dynamic. It's fantastic. And I just finished it, but it really, really, it puts it very well that, historically we've been in survival mode as a species, and we've had to be because there were animals and no food, and we've had to be in survival mode. But we're now at this phenomenal time in history as people where we can stop being in survival mode. We can move to creation mode. For the most part, in first world countries, our basic needs are met. So we can
Right.
focus on creating. But we're also conditioned to worry and fear and have anxiety. So, because for 1,000 years it's been that way. So, it's just the book really puts it very well. Although I've heard the message elsewhere too. But yeah, just focus on creation and not what could go wrong.
That's awesome. So the next question I want to ask you is, when people first meet you, what are the three misconceptions about you?
Well, I mean, one kind of funny one is that I talk fast, and
Uh-huh.
when I get into something, I get really excited and excitable. And I've had people say, "Oh, calm down." I'm like, "Oh, I feel totally calm. Am I not calm?" So, yeah. And I truly feel calm, but people think, even my kids once in a while are like, "Mommy, calm down." I'm like, "I feel calm."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So in terms of misconceptions, I have to put that out there because it's hysterical that like this continues to come up. I'm like, I feel totally calm in myself, but thank you. But I think the other thing that misconceptions people have is because I'm so, I am outgoing, and I am, strong in my words. I think, people think at times that I don't have, negative thoughts that I've had to push through, and
Right.
and and I really have, and it wasn't until I really started this journey truly into real estate, and got into this world, and lost my mom. All of these things, kind of the confluence of the events, really, there's a lot of sadness in my life that I've had to push through. And so I think when people see me, they're like, "Oh, she's so positive and she's so confident." And the reality is, I mean, I absolutely feel that way. But there are those moments where I can feel the sadness or the negativity creep in that I have to reject and say,
Hmm.
I'm choosing not to think those things. Um, so I think that's a misconception. People just assume like, you're always here, right?
Right.
You're always hot. I'm feeling good. But it's I think that's something. Then as far as a third, I don't know that I have a third.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. I want to elaborate, go off the last thing you just said as the third question that I have for you is, you mentioned there's negativity. There's a lot of breakthroughs that you've had. And ever since you got into real estate, after what's happened to your mom, what were some of the things that, like, let's say the biggest thing you had to overcome, where going in you thought, like, you didn't expect that you had to overcome this, or you didn't expect it to be this hard? What would it be?
Well, 100. I mean, 100% around mindset. I don't think that there's anything when it comes to my actual real estate investment that wasn't doable or figure outable. It was more so the mindset of it, and I could feel myself when I first started. I could feel myself self sabotaging. Like, why am I so worried about this going wrong? Everything checks out. In terms of all my numbers check out. I've got the right pieces of the puzzle in place, but I could feel myself worrying. This is again before I really got into this, did the spiritual work really. But I think the limiting beliefs and the self-sabotaging that comes from the limiting beliefs, I'd say that was the biggest hurdle that
Mm.
I had to overcome, far more than any of the education in real estate and the actual running of the real estate. It was, man, just,
Where do you think it came from?
mean, I'm gonna just say it. My mother wouldn't be mad. My mother, she tended to be a little bit more negative, and I know, and she was my best friend, so I think I just kind of picked up on that. You are the sum of the five people you spend the most time with.
Right.
I absolutely
Right.
spoke to her every day, all the time. So I really do think that's where it came from, and I was totally unconscious of it. I had no idea, and I
Right.
think
When
that was
we're around it all the time,
all the time.
you don't think about it.
I had no idea. I truly had no idea. And then when she passed and I started auditing my thoughts and then I started to think, wow, like wow, this why do I think that way? That thought doesn't serve me. It's also not true. so
Right.
so I true but I think a lot of our patterns of thought come from our parents. And for good and bad, right? I think they come from our parents and we it's our job as adults to think critically and to take from what they gave us and then reject the things we don't want. Yeah, and but it's all about being conscious enough to even know that you have
Right.
taken on those patterns of thought. And I absolutely was not aware of my patterns of thought
I
prior.
can I can agree with you because growing up, there's the positives and negatives. There's good things, of course, our parents passed down, right? Like for myself, mom and dad passed down the hard work. Like
Mhm.
you gotta just work hard, bust your butt. But it's how they looked at finances. Oh, the gas costs so much. Vegetables are $2 more per pound at the store. And it's even recent. We're talking about recent family gatherings.
Yes,
And
yes,
and then afterwards, Helen and I will get together and we will have to say to ourselves, we can't say those things,
no, yes,
but our family gets into it. Like they really get into it.
yeah,
My mom, right, who doesn't pay for anything anymore, still is like, oh my gosh, vegetables so much more, the string beans. And I'm like, what? What are we talking? Have you seen the vegetable prices? I say no. And yet,
yeah.
now some people might be like, oh, they how could they not care about how much vegetables cost?
No.
That's like a
Scarcity mindset.
stuck up type of mentality.
No, it's a scarcity mindset. 100% a scarcity
Huge.
mindset. And that's it. My mother had a scarcity mindset as well. I'm glad you brought that up because that was a huge hurdle for me to overcome. No matter how well things were going financially, she was still scared and scarce. And I was too. I didn't realize that. Again, it was another thing I didn't realize. And then I started auditing my thoughts. I'm like, what am I afraid of? Like none of it's rooted in any sort of reality. It's all patterns of thought. But my grandparents, on my mom's side, they came over from the Holocaust. They got out before the Holocaust, but they're Jewish and they had all the scary things that could have possibly happened. And then they get to America and they're just surviving. And and then my mother grew up in that house. They were surviving. So and then in our house, no matter how well things were going, we were definitely just surviving. How could you possibly be abundant? But it really was. I'm like now, similar to exactly what you just said, Alex. We would talk about our children. Luigi and I are so careful of what we say. I don't even want to say something's too expensive. I don't say it. Just just be like, we're not going to do that today. Or whatever.
Right.
Don't use those words. I'm so conscious of not passing on that scarcity mindset. And there's scarcity around money. There's scarcity around relationships. There's people have scarcity around different things, but yeah, exactly what you said. I refuse to speak to it because I don't. I truly believe that what you say is what you get in life. So
Absolutely.
stop saying that the vegetables are too expensive. Just say they taste good and just walk away. Like
Right.
that's it. Like your words matter. Just stop.
Right.
But, yeah, the kid thing. That's you recognize now that I'm so conscious of these patterns of thought. I am so determined to create a different path for the generations moving forward in my family. It's
Absolutely.
imperative.
Well, Lauren, it's a pleasure having you on. I'm so excited to see where our journey
Me too.
continually will go and where it will take.
I'm so
And
excited. You're my first LP investment. I just feel
Right,
proud of
right.
you.
Oh, and that property is doing well.
Yeah, I'm so excited about it. I love, yeah, the updates. I mean, you and Wyatt are fantastic, and Helen. I mean, all of you. I'd love to work with you. It's wonderful.
Hey, it takes good people to know good people,
It does.
right?
It
You
does.
know.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for being on today. It was an absolute pleasure
Thank you for
sharing
having me.
all the things that you've shared, and yeah, it's a pleasure having you.
Pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Life by Design podcast. If you want more shows like we just interviewed with Lauren, please click here and here. We'll see you on the next one.